Hello, this is the demo for the Plex and Canvas GFX integration functionality that we added to the process step screen in UX. So the screen that I'm on right now is navigated to from the control panel, and we've added a process steps button here in the Work Center status widget. So I've clicked that button and now I am in the process step screen. And the screen is divided into two different sections. On the left here, we have a list of our process groups and our process steps. So in this case, our groups are the vertical frame assembly overview, the vertical frame assembly, and install base support shafts. And the steps are the rows in the column underneath each group. On the right-hand side of the screen, we have a viewer, which is an embedded version of the Canvas GFX product called Envision. And you can see here in the viewer, we have this 3D model. Now, the document that we're viewing right now is vertical frame assembly overview, and it corresponds to this first process group. So within this document, we have a couple of different ways we can interact with the model. So we can see two different buttons here. One says 3D and the other is these red arrows. So if we click on 3D, it will load up the model. And once the model's loaded from here, you can see that we can do a kind of freehand rotation of the model, as well as highlight different areas and select. And we can also use these buttons in the action bar to trigger different rotations. So just click through some of them here, and we can see this part from all different angles. And we can use this button here to revert back to the original view. Now, once you have a piece selected here, just by left-clicking it, you can use this button in the action bar to isolate that piece. So if we click on that button, you'll see that the rest of the model fades away, and we're left with just that one piece that we had selected, which again, we can kind of do that freehand rotation on. Once we are done with that, we can click on the X and the view will revert back to its original form. Now, if we click on the other button here, these red arrows, we can see that it pulls open the model in kind of a larger view with more zoomed in, so we can view more of the model at once here. And in the action bar, we have a couple of new options. Namely, we can open up the assembly tree. And here we have each different piece of the part listed. And if we were to select one of them, like let's say this first piece here, and we can see that it's highlighted in yellow here on the right, we can again use this isolate button to zoom in on that one part. So if you know the name of the piece of the part that you're looking for, you can select it from this tree here on the left, and then isolate the one part that you might be interested in seeing. Now we have different documents associated with each step in the process group. So as I mentioned, the document that we're viewing right now is for vertical frame assembly. If we click on the install screen step, we see that it has loaded a different document. And from here, we can see that, again, we have a 3D model. We have some instructions for what the operator needs to do at this step. And we have some buttons on the page as well. These three buttons up here, and then these two buttons down here. So we can use these buttons to interact with the document in different ways. So for example, we have this button here that changes the language of the document from English to Spanish, and we can change it back. We have buttons to interact with the model. So for example, this ghost button will kind of fade the other parts of the model out into the background, and we're left with the one piece that we might want to focus on. The solid button will restore the model back to its original form. We also have an animation button, If we click on that, we can see that the buttons on the model itself have changed. We still have access to the red arrows, but now we have access to this video recorder. If we click on this video recorder, the model will load, and then what we'll see is an animation start playing. So this is just a really simple animation that shows how the part might be put together by the operator. And you've probably noticed we have these animation controls that have appeared at the top of the page that we can use to pause and start the recording. Moving on, the next step in assembling this part is to install the extruder. So again, we have the same buttons available here. We can flip back and forth between the different languages, and we can trigger the animation for installing the extruder. So the animation will begin playing for that. Again, just a really simple way to show how a part might be put together. Lastly, we have installing the ZAxis motors. Again, we have the same buttons available on this screen with an additional animation for the new model. That shows how you might install the ZAxis motors. Now, so far we've seen how we might have a different document associated with each step in the process group. In the second group here, we have an example of what it might look like to have one document for the entire group. So in this case, we have the same part as we had in this first group, but instead of multiple different documents, we have one document here with 5 pages. So we can see we have these page controls up top where we can navigate through the different pieces. And again, these buttons work the same ways they did in the previous step, where we can start the animation, interact with it with these animation controls, just like we did before. And let's say once we're done, we can then go to the next step, all from within this document without needing to select another row in Plex. In this type of setup, you could do something like have a page that looks like this, where you might want to instruct the user to record the distance between 2 pieces. So in this case, it's very easy to see where you want the operator to take the recorded measurement. And then here we have a link to open a check sheet within Plex so that the user can enter in that measurement, and we can record quality on that piece. Then lastly, we just have one more example of another part that has another animation that we could show for how that part might be put together. So very simple animation. The last thing that I want to point out is these buttons that we have here in the action bar. So we have an option to pop out the viewer. So what happens when we click on that is it will open a new tab, and the Canvas GFX Envision viewer will be open in the new tab on whatever document you had selected when you clicked the button. And now you can see the document is taking up the entire screen. We have more screen real estate we can work with to view a larger version of the document and the model inside. And we can interact with the document this way. We also have the Open Envision Creator button, which will, when clicked, navigate the user outside of Plex UX and into Canvas's own Envision web app. And this is opening up what is called the Canvas Envision Creator. And this will open up the document that you had selected in UX. So again, you see we have this model. And here, changes can be made to the document. So let's say I wanted to add some text to the document. All I have to do is use the tools in the action bar and then wait for the document to be automatically saved. And then what we'll be able to do once it's saved is come back into UX and let's reload the document. I'm just going to do that by navigating to a different document and then back. You could also do it by reloading the screen itself. But now we can see that the change that I made to the document is instantly reflected in the document in UX. So this is a really simple way to make changes and have them pushed out right away. A button like this might be something that gets hidden behind specific permissions, for example, so only certain users have access to the creator, whereas others, can only interact with the documents in a viewer type fashion like we show here. And that is all of the functionality that we wanted to show. So thank you very much for watching.